Nothing makes me happier than a stack of books I love. Hi friends and welcome back to my channel. It's the 1st of January, it's officially 2024, so I thought that I would share my best books of 2023. First of all, Happy New Year everyone! I hope you had a lovely last couple of days of 2023, and if you didn't, forget about that now and let's attempt to move on. I am finally gonna share my top 10 books of 2023. I know many people actually start posting these in December, but for me it feels weird because it's not officially the end of the year yet, so what if I read a favorite book in like the last few days and then I forgot to include it or something? Maybe a stupid reason. But we're here now in January and I have finally concluded my list. So we're gonna do a top 10 of my favorite reads. I will rank them from 10 to 1. And before that, we're gonna talk about some honorable mentions. I have read quite many great books in 2023, I feel like. And I think I had more 5 stars than I typically do. But at the same time, I feel a bit iffy about my reading in 2023. It's not a reading year that will stand out in my memory, I think. I'm not certain. But I do have 14 amazing books here that I still want to talk to you about. Let's start with the honorable mentions. These are books that I have adored, have thought about a lot. I either gave them 4.5 or even 5 stars. They just didn't make it to the top 10. First, we have The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels. This is a really interesting book. It's a thriller book told through mixed media, so the story is actually told through like text messages and emails and stuff. And I really enjoy that. It makes for a very simple and quick read. I read this while I was away on holiday, which was wonderful. Perfect beach read, I would say. This story is about a true crime author who is researching the notorious Alperton Angels cult. So we have some cultish vibes here. He's researching this crime and it's a lot of fun and I would highly recommend this one actually. And I'm very interested to read this author's other books now. Another honorable mention is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon by Sarah Hawley. This one is so much fun. Basically, it's a contemporary fantasy romance, I would say. It's mainly a romance. I've categorized it as a romance in my reading log, but with a fantasy setting, fantasy background. Like these characters, it's our contemporary world, but where everyone's aware that magic exists, demon and witches and similar exist in this world and everyone knows about it, which I quite like. I like the concept of people being like, oh hi, that's a witch, that's a demon, that's a vampire. I think that's quite fun. This story is about Mariel, who is a witch, but she's sort of struggling with her enchantments and stuff. And one day she accidentally summons a demon who is a bargainer who wants to bargain for her soul. So he attempts to strike a deal with her, but she doesn't want to. So because he can fulfill his role, he basically needs to stick around until he can. And they start to develop feelings for each other and it's really cute. I remember that I adore the characters and the banter and just like the setting and backdrop of it all, of it being contemporary fantasy. I would say cozy fantasy basically, with romance. Really good, recommend. Another book I adored with lovely prose is A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This one was great, wonderful pacing. First of all, like it made so much sense. If you don't know, the story is about Dracula's wife, so we're following it from her point of view, from when he found her, and then her life throughout the centuries, and some other characters are introduced as well. There's multiple, I believe, polyamorous relationships in this one as well. The prose, the writing, it's wonderful, it's lyrical, it's beautiful, and once again, the pacing is great. Like the book isn't that long, it's less than 300 pages, if I remember correctly. But the pacing just makes sense. The story takes place across centuries, but it's so well done and so well executed. So I can't wait until this author starts releasing more books, which he will now in 2024, I think. And I'm very excited to get to them because the writing is gorgeous. And then my final honorable mention before we get to the top 10s is Everyone's an Alien When You're an Alien Too by Jomny Sun. This is more like a comic or graphic novel, I would say. This story is about an alien who's sent to Earth to learn about Earth. He just learns about Earth and nature in the most wonderful way, I would say. So there's a bunch of lovely quotes, a bunch of lovely feel-good moments, moments that will make you smile, moments that might make you contemplate life. Like this one, enjoy your sadness. One day even your sadness will be over too soon. It's fun, it's cute, rereadable, quick read. Highly recommend if you perhaps need a pick-me-up. Now let's get to the top 10. What were my 10 favorite books of the year? On number 10 we have Finlay Donovan is Killing It by Elle Casimano. This is the first book in the Finlay Donovan series. I listened to it quite early in 2023, like in January, and the audiobook was so good. It's a cozy mystery about this writer, like Finlay Donovan is an author, and she is one day at a cafe discussing her upcoming book with her agent. Someone overhears this conversation and believes that she's a hit woman. When she leaves this cafe, she finds a note with someone's name, a number, and like an address. And yeah, she sort of gets wrapped up in this hit woman and mafia sort of world, while also gathering inspiration for her writing. It's one of those stories where things just progressively gets more and more messy, similar to Dial A for Aunties, for example, and I thought it was so much fun, and I adore the character and like all the side characters and stuff as well. It was great. I have since also read the other books in the series that are out so far. Have not been as impressed by those, but overall, especially the first book, it's so feel good and so fun. So I would highly recommend this book if you're on the lookout for a cozy mystery. On number 9 we have My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. This one is basically an essay collection, a personal memoir essay collection. She's an actress and model. It's a lot about her making it, I guess, in Hollywood and in the fashion industry. Like her coming up and becoming who she is and having the career that she has. She's a really smart woman and I really enjoyed listening to her, reading her own essays. I personally adore when someone who has written a memoir narrates the memoir themselves. I thought this was great. I love the conflict and I guess the juxtaposition of women using their sexuality to get what they want, but also how they sometimes are shamed for that. In this book she discusses greatly about feminism, sexuality, loving her own body and all of that, and both the positives and the negatives of that, I guess. Or not negatives, but like how others view and use her because of that. And she's a gorgeous woman, but she's also incredibly talented and smart. And I just loved listening to her thoughts. And I remember there's a moment in this book where you can hear her voice break and she's breaking down while telling you about one of the events that happened to her. It's a really heartfelt and emotional book in that way. And I really just appreciated her honesty and rawness with that. So I think it's an amazing book. I would highly recommend it if you're interested in like celebrity memoirs. On number 8, we have a book that I never remember the translated title of. That is My Grandmother Told Me to Tell You She's Sorry. Is that the one? My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Fredrik Backman. This is the year where I completed reading Fredrik Backman's entire bibliography. This one, I think I almost started out the year with this one actually. I read it back in February. It's wonderful. It really is. It's about this 7-year-old girl, Elsa. She's struggling being like other kids her age. And she has a grandmother who adores her and who she adores as well. They are best friends. But one day this grandmother gets sick and leaves a series of letters for Elsa to give to people. And these letters are like apologies to a bunch of different people. So Elsa goes on this quest to deliver these letters to the people in their apartment complex and similar, and she learns a lot more about her grandmother. But also there's this fantasy land basically that Elsa and her grandmother created together, where Elsa finds a lot of comfort and she can fantasize and basically mentally run away to that place whenever she feels like she needs to. I wasn't convinced about it being a stellar 5-star while I was reading it, but the ending of the book really got to me. And it's once again with Fredrik Backman, it's emotional, it's heartfelt, but then on the next page I will laugh out loud. All the emotions, lovely characterizations and showcase of human relationships and the complexity of human relationships. It's raw, it's human, it's honest. I adore it. I adore it. I adore Fredrik Backman's books. What can I say? Speaking of Fredrik Backman, on number 7 we have Things My Son Needs to Know About the World. Once again, a personal essay collection. It's basically his thoughts about becoming a father, fatherhood, parenthood, trying to explain to his son why he acts the way he does, why things are the way they are. Once again, heartfelt, beautiful. It's also a bunch of fun anecdotes about his life and his life with his wife and similar. He touches upon so many different subjects with this one. I feel like this needs a reread from me as well. Number 6 on the list is The Martian by Andy Weir. Yes, I finally read this one and it was so much fun. It's about Mark Watney who goes to space, he goes to Mars, and their expedition goes wrong and he gets stuck there. So it's about him trying to survive on Mars while people on Earth are trying to come up with a rescue mission for him. It's incredibly nerdy. Or not incredibly nerdy, but it's quite nerdy. There's a lot of physics, biology, chemistry in it, but it's explained in a way that's understandable even for people that are not necessarily, that perhaps haven't studied those subjects or are not that interested. I feel like the way he explains these STEM subjects is quite well executed, and it's also just incredibly funny. Mark Watney, the main character, is hilarious. It's so much fun when he is trying to communicate with NASA and all of that. Like, it's a good old time. It was a fun adventure in some ways. There's a lot of pressure on Mark Watney being an entertaining main character, considering he's alone on an entire planet, but he handles that part so well, I would say. So yeah, wonderful book actually. Really, really good. Number 5, we have The Fragile Threads of Power. Perhaps you expected this one to be higher up on the list. This is the start of a new trilogy in the A Darker Shade of Magic universe by W.E. Schwab. A Darker Shade of Magic, or the Shades of Magic series, is a trilogy that I claim is the series that got me back into reading about 4 years ago now. I love that series with my entire heart. I love that series, I love those characters. I actually reread that entire series before getting to this one just to freshen up my memory, and I had an amazing time with it, and for me those books were still incredible. So I was so excited about this one. It was released in September, I believe, and we are introduced to new characters while still keeping in touch with our old OG crew. The Fragile Threads of Power takes place about 7 years after the events in the third book, A Conjuring of Light, and not only are we hanging out with the OG crew, Kel, Rai, Lila, but we're also introduced to new characters. Amongst them 2 girls, one is named Kosika and one is named Tess. I personally loved Tess. She has the coolest power of being able to actually see the threads of magic. Like, she's able to see magic. She tinkers with things. She's basically like a fixer, a tinkerer, inventor. I love her, and I really enjoyed getting to know her backstory as well. I loved being back with the OG crew. Kel is still my boy after all these years. I love him, and I just love this world. I like the magic system, I like the parallel Londons. If you don't know, this story is about 4 parallel Londons: red, black, white and grey London, and only some people can travel across these ones, and there are various degrees of magic in each London. There's elemental magic, there's blood magic. I did enjoy reading this one so much. It spoke to me on so many levels. It is quite slow at the start, I would say. There's a lot of catching up with the last 7 years. There's a lot of flashbacks, a lot of, I guess, time jumps, time skips, things like that. It's taking its time introducing the new characters, catching you up on what everyone's been up to. But then there are a couple of things that are introduced in these books that I'm really excited about for the upcoming books in the series. We're introduced a bit more of political intrigue. There's like this group that are against the monarchy and that will be fighting against the monarchy, which is super interesting, I think. There are new characters in the royal court and similar that are quite interesting. I feel like this series overall has a lot of potential. I think this is the first in a new trilogy, or I don't know how many books there will be. Same universe as A Dark Shade of Magic, but sort of a new story. Would still recommend that you have read the first one actually. If you have enjoyed that, you definitely should continue with the series. I wasn't sure I was gonna give it 5-star, but I feel like it had a quite strong ending. It has a lot of wonderful potential, and for me this book, this series, this world, it just feels like home to me. Number 4 amongst the best books I read in 2023 is a romance, and that is X's and O's by Amy Lee. This one came out of nowhere, It made me smile like a goof, it made me squeal, it made me so happy. I had the best of times reading this one and I just flew through it. In the story we are following Tara, who has had her heart broken 10 times, but she's still the hopeless romantic and is figuring out that perhaps she can create her own second chance romance by revisiting her exes. Trevor is her roommate, he is a firefighter. He doesn't really do relationships, but he decides to help Tara out on her quest of gaining her second chance romance. So basically she makes a list of all of her exes and starts to reach out to those that weren't complete assholes and figure out why they did not work out, or if there perhaps is any chance of rekindling emotions there. And while she does this, she gets support from Trevor. He's trying to, I guess, coach her a bit about how to act with these guys that just takes her for granted all the time. There's a lot of lovely banter between these two in the story, and their relationship starts out as friendships and just constantly develops. It's great, I love to see it, and I feel like this one is quite underrated. I haven't heard that many people talk about it, so if you're looking for a feel-good romance, this is the one you should read. We're getting to the top 3 now. Exciting. Number 3, which I'm so happy about that I finally read. So happy about this one actually. Number 3 on this list, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I officially started my Mistborn journey in 2023 and I read the first book in the Mistborn series and I had the best of times reading this one, honestly. I think I read it in like 2 or 3 days while I was away on holiday. And it's a 600 something page beast. So I had an amazing time with this one. This is an epic adult fantasy and it's taking place in a world where the bad guy won. So this world that we are in is ruled by the bad guy, the villain. And we are following a man called Kelsier. He is Mistborn, which means that he can use multiple types of metals to his advantage. Basically the magic system here is using metals to be quicker, stronger, pull things towards you, throw things away, enhance your senses. If I remember correctly now, Mistborns are able to use different types of metals for different types of abilities basically. Some people can only use one. He is looking for revenge for a few reasons. And he basically has this crew, which is super fun to follow. And he recruits a young woman called Wynne, who is also learning that she has magical powers. Really cool magic system, really great characters. I love Kelsier, I loved Wynne, I adored the crew. It's a good old time. This is a heist story, okay? This story here, it doesn't say on the back, I hadn't heard anybody talk about it before, but this is a heist story. And if you love Six of Crows or similar, you will adore this one. I promise you that. It's a cool world, cool characters, cool magic system. Just know that you're entering this grand world of Brandon Sanderson's mind when you get into this one. So I'm so glad I've started my Mistborn journey now. So excited to continue with it now this year, 2024. This one, it was fun. It was a fun, good old time. Highly recommend it actually. Like, yes. We're getting to the top 2 now. If you've seen my book awards of 2023, you might know the top 2. I talked about them there, and in that video I actually put them as a tie. But I do feel like I've made a decision about it in my mind. Second place, we have Yellowface by Rebecca F. Kuang. Is the author of the Poppy War series, which is one of my favorite adult fantasy series. The difference with this book though is that it's a contemporary novel. This story is about June, who basically steals a manuscript and publishes it as her own. June is a writer, she's got a friend, Athena, who is a writer, and Athena suddenly dies in a freak accident. June steals her unpublished manuscript, makes some tweaks and adjustments to it, and publishes it under a different name, a racial ambiguous name. She publishes it under the name Juniper Song. The thing here is that June is a white woman. Athena was a woman of Chinese heritage. So there's a lot of discussion about that there basically. I really enjoyed this as well. I thought it was so smart. Rebecca Kuang is definitely on the nose with what she writes. It's very clear what her opinion is in most of the matters. It's interesting though, because we're following this from the story of the villain. The story is told from June's point of view. It feels so wrong to be in the mind of this person who's making all of these poor decisions basically and is making so many wrongs. But it's also weird because you can occasionally relate to June and her feelings of jealousy, I would say, which is a bit scary because you don't want to be this character. It's a very unlikable character. It's just frustrating to be in her mind, honestly. I think it's really interesting to read about the publishing world in this one as well. I feel like it's a very correct way of describing the publishing world today, together with social media and cancel culture. I had an amazing time reading this one. We're now at number 1. The best book that I read in 2023 is Against the Loveless World by Susan Abulhava. This book I read as an ebook while away on holiday back in February, and it took me entirely by surprise because I had never heard about this book before. It was emotional, gut-wrenching, heartfelt, wonderfully written. This story is about a young Palestinian refugee who slowly becomes more and more radicalized while searching for a better life for her family throughout the Middle East. This woman was born in Kuwait in the 70s to Palestinian refugees. When US invades Iraq, she moves to Jordan and then she ends up back in Palestine. So this is her life story about the struggles she has experienced, about her being a refugee, and it's about her finding and losing love, about the things she had to do in order to survive and care for her family. I felt like I was learning while I was reading this one, which I wouldn't say is rare, but it was fun to learn and also be so emotionally invested in the story. It's definitely a book I have thought about a lot and returned to in my thoughts. I need to get this in a physical copy, I feel like. Why haven't I yet? In my review I wrote that it's fiction that reads like non-fiction but in the best way, and all of the characters and their stories feel so real, raw and honest. So if you're looking for like a book that will hit or beat you up basically, this is the one. And that's it for my best books of 2023. Please let me know if you have read any of the books on this list that I've talked about, or if perhaps this video motivated you to pick up any one of these books. I would love to hear if I have inspired you to read any of these ones actually. All of the 14 books I've talked about today, I do highly recommend. Also, feel free to let me know your favorite books of 2023. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. Please take care and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!
You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came